Hey guys, I'm doing a review of It all by myself today because Dee shit himself during the movie. It is the movie adaptation of a Stephen King novel, and this book is in fact a two-parter. The movie covers part one. There is a part two where the kids grow up and they are adults, but this movie specifically covers part one. So the movie It is about a moron clown that likes to go around scaring little kids because he feeds off of their fear. Or he just feeds off of them. I'm not entirely clear. Sometimes he walks around just trying to scare you shitless, and the other times he has a row of teeth that just pop out of his mouth trying to take a bite, as you see in the first few minutes when he takes out the little kid. Now, I will preface this in saying I don't like horror films, not because they scare me, but because I find most of them really stupid. They have a lot of derivativeness, they have a lot of the same tropes, and a lot of it is when I see characters doing really stupid things that put them in those situations in the first place, it takes me out of the movie because I just think, why are you doing this? You're doing it to yourself. This is a self-inflicted wound. Clowns, to me, they're mostly morons. I don't really see them as funny or scary. I just see them as these goofy morons that just run on stage and try to entertain you before the actual circus starts. This new film, is actually quite good. I actually enjoyed it despite it being a horror film. Part of that is because it doesn't really utilize the tropes of the horror film the way most bad horror movies do it. And a lot of bad horror movies, they tend to have these characters that are forgettable, that just sort of get offed. And in this film, you have your main cast of young kids, mostly boys and one girl. They actually remind me a lot of the South Park characters, where you have your main leader, the Stan type character, you have the Jewish kid, you have the fat kid, you have your Butters, your Token Black, your Wendy Testaburger. They're very well defined. You get to spend time with each of them, and there's a bit of depth in each of them where you really go into it, and you get into what scares them, what makes them unique, what makes them them. And just seeing the chemistry of the group interact with itself is really delightful to see. The movie takes place in the 80s, and they really capture that 80s feel really well. Whether it's the listening to New Kids on the Block, to the glasses that one of the kids is wearing, to just the general feel of the town as a whole. I even like the moments of levity in between the horror, where the kids are just hanging out being goofy boys. The clown itself, he kind of bugs me because he seems to be this all-powerful being where he can shape-shift, he can create illusions, he can pop out of walls. He can pretty much has the power of a god. He can seemingly he can do anything he wants. But he chooses to hang out in the sewer and tries to get like kids to come to him rather than him going to them, even though he seems to be fully capable of doing it. So it's not fully explained as to why he has these limits or not, and it doesn't really explain what his goals are. He says that he feeds off of the kids' fear. He actually says that, but then he also has like these rows of teeth that pop out of his mouth like an alien and just tries to take a bite into you. And I'm like, well, are you trying to physically eat the kids, or are you just trying to scare them and feed off of their fears? I don't get it. And maybe it's a good thing because maybe the unknown makes him scarier, but to me it just doesn't. I just don't get it. I think that the horror in the movie though is really well done. It's really subversive. They take these aspects that you think are happy, like balloons, and they twist it on your head and try to scare you with them. Like, how can a balloon be scary? Well, watch the movie and you can find out how a balloon can be scary. There's also other aspects to the town that really gives it some depth and some fear that's outside of Pennywise the Clown. The female character, Beverly, she has a father that she seems completely terrified of. And they don't tell you exactly why she's terrified, but they hint at her dad having an inappropriate relationship with her, like she might have been raped at some point. Because there's a scene where he's grabbing her by the hair and he's like, "Oh, you're still my little girl? You're still my little girl?" "Yes, Daddy." She goes into the bathroom crying and cuts off her hair just to make herself look like a boy because she's utterly terrified of the dad. And they don't tell you what the relationship is, but they hint at it enough that you can feel her fear, like her own father's going to do something inappropriate to her, that you just don't get from the Pennywise the Clown and his weird shapeshifting. There's this boy who's constantly taking medicine. He's doing it because he's afraid of his mother, who's just keeps feeding him this medicine because she's trying to keep him safe. Oh man, the bully is just a complete psychopath. Like, it's beyond bullying. It's like he's a murderer, pretty much. There's a scene where he takes out a knife and he starts carving his initials into one of the kids' stomachs. And I'm like, you need to go to jail for that. That is intense. That is beyond what you'd expect from normal bullying. And this bully just completely, utterly terrifies me. Now, some of the problems I found with the movie were there are a few strings that they leave just hanging there, one specifically with the bully. They're not necessarily plot holes, but they're things that, I don't know if they're leaving them for the other movie, but they just leave them unresolved. And I thought some of the CGI with Pennywise wasn't as good as it could have been. They definitely could have polished it up a little bit more. But in general, I'll say that for a horror movie, I enjoyed it, and I don't like horror movies as a whole. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, and I think that if you are a horror fan, you should definitely check it out, because it's quite good. Even for someone who's not a horror fan, I would recommend it.